Hi, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. We have a special guest today, comedian and author Andrew Heaton.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you so much
for inviting me to your living room. This is very nice.
Give you a round of applause here on the show. Thanks for being here. Stu, what was your top story?
Hillary Clinton revealed something I think really important about us as human beings this past week, and it's something to I think examine closely.
All right, Jason.
I didn't think the Kavanaugh hearings could get even more ridiculous or ludicrous, and then the last 48 hours happened.
All right, Andrew.
Just on the Hillary Clinton thing?
No, it's your top story. Yes.
I have foreboding news about the debt.
Well, thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn. She's back.
But does he think that it's a problem?
Yes, you're going to be shocked to hear.
Okay, well then yes, I'm going to be channeling him.
Before we get into all of that, want to thank our TV and podcast sponsor, Patriot Mobile. So it's interesting. You don't think about all of the different companies that you use and what they're donating to, but most of the time it's going to be liberal causes.
Well, I mean,
you really want your money
big
going
company,
to.
right? They want feel-good causes, get the good press and everything. So that happens a lot. I mean, there's one cell phone company that in particular that has donated over $80 million to left-wing causes, and if you happen to be left-wing, that's a great fit, right? You get to, hey, if you're helping out the causes you believe in. If you're not left-wing, though.
If you're listening to us, you're probably not.
You're most likely not left-wing, and you'd rather support causes that are more friendly to conservatives, and that's actually why they started Patriot Mobile as a company.
Yeah.
So they take a portion of your bill and they give it to a conservative organization of your choice, whether, depending whatever your issue is, whether it's veterans' rights or Second Amendment or whatever it is, and they'll help you. And the good thing is you don't have to sacrifice for service. It's great network. You get coverage everywhere. I use it. It's awesome.
Yeah. So win-win. Go to patriotmobile.com/news, and all data plans are $17.87 for your first month. Can't beat that. Patriotmobile.com.
For Constitution Day. They're doing that.
Right. Exactly.
Special.
$17.87. I should be specific, not 1,780.
No, that would be too much. That would be too high.
That is not a good deal.
That's about my cell phone.
You need to switch to Patriot Mobile.
Also, if you're going to be on the moon and you'll be able to talk to people while on the moon.
Exactly. It's Stu.
So we talked about this a little bit earlier this week. They were trying to get Kavanaugh in. They're doing everything they can. And actually, Andrew has a great video out about what should have happened in the Kavanaugh hearings. It's on TheBlaze. You should go watch it. It's awesome. But it shows how ridiculous these hearings have been. It's just been a show, right? It's like who's going to be up for 2020. They're all just trying to come up with their great donor moment where they can have this thing where they look the angriest about Kavanaugh and therefore can raise money for their 2020 campaigns. And so Kamala Harris tweeted out this video clip of Kavanaugh saying that she's called something abortion-inducing drugs, and the idea was that he believed birth control was abortion-inducing drugs, therefore would try to ban it if you put him in the Supreme Court. A ridiculous premise. There's no evidence of this. There's no evidence. I literally have never met a person in my entire life that wants to ban birth control. Other than Cory Gardner, who did ban it.
Who did
already.
From a famous commercial back in the election season. It's ridiculous. But what was even worse than it is she took out the previous two words was, they said. Kavanaugh was quoting a previous argument in a court. They said these abortion-inducing drugs were blah, blah, blah. She cut out they said, made it look like he was saying it.
Minor details.
Right. So it does the circuit of the fact checkers. PolitiFact comes out and says false. Washington Post, 4 Pinocchios. They all come out with their worst rating on this claim because it's blatantly obvious. 2 days after all of this occurs, Hillary Clinton tweets this. I want to make sure we're all clear about something that Brett Kavanaugh said in his confirmation hearings last week. He referred to birth control drugs as abortion-inducing drugs. That set off a lot of alarm bells for me, and it should for you too. Blah blah blah. And the question was, I had a strange moment here because Hillary Clinton's not even running for anything, right? What possible?
Always running for something.
Right, she's always running for something. What possible use would it be to jump on the bandwagon of this claim now? It's one thing to put it out there and hope people buy it, but it's another thing after it's kind of been shown to be embarrassingly false that you jump on that bandwagon. Jonah Goldberg wrote something today that I thought was really interesting, and it kind of reveals something a little bit about who we are and the way things are going. Let me give you a little clip of this. He writes, one of the more dominant features of our time, the more and more people define themselves by what they hate. For many partisans, what motivates them isn't the support for their side's policies, but a hatred of the other party. Most Republicans didn't vote for Donald Trump. They voted against Hillary. Most Democrats didn't vote for Hillary. They voted against Trump. And DeJono was kind of trying to come up with the same idea as to what caused this from Hillary. And it could have been incompetence. Yeah, maybe. Could it have been a staffer did it? Sure. But it's really, I think, more at this point of just because of the concept we just talked about, it brings you to a point where you are trying to create that dynamic. Like, it's almost like you're intentionally doing something that's wrong and can be easily disproved because you will get attacked by all the right people. And when you get attacked by all the right people, then you get defense on your side. People will jump out and say, well, if Donald Trump is mad at you for it and TheBlaze is mad at you for it, well, then you must be right and we're going to come to your aid. And that is a really deep sickness, right? Like, that is it's not an okay way to run a society. We really should get away from that. He goes on and says, with the media climate where every news outlet is essentially a niche product, appealing to a relatively small slice of the market is one of the best ways to get attention and support is to be attacked by the other side. And I think he's right on that. And I think we also on the right get into that bandwagon, and way too often, the idea that just because sometimes people on your side are stupid and wrong and idiots. And it should be okay to call them out on that. You don't need to defend every time they're attacked. You should be coming out and calling them out each time because it's your credibility on the line, too. It's not just this little team sport. It should be something that we all care about our own credibility and call balls and strikes like you're supposed to.
And there's another thing just about the outrage on, especially social media. Like, you can make it, we've talked about this before, but you can make a crazy outlandish statement like this. And regardless if it's false, within 30 minutes, it's going to be retweeted about 50,000 times, depending on the popularity and the hoopla surrounding it. But if there's a correction, no one cares about the correction. The correction will come after the fact, maybe even 2 or 3 days later, and it'll get 3 or 4 retweets. No one cares. And it's just the way that social media, I think, runs, is that everyone's looking for, in the moment, the gotcha, burn, owned, or something like that. Everyone wants to see that. And they know that. The people that are doing these, they know that everyone's going to see that initial thing. They're not really going to care about when they get called on out about it later.
Yeah.
I really hope that Hillary Clinton is like on an island in Baruba or something. It was just like on Reddit and went, what? I hope that she's having a my time. I hope that she's having a fun time. What disturbs me about all of this is I get why Democrats are very worked up about the Kennedy seat going to conservatives. That makes sense to me. I understand the Hail Mary pass that's happening. That makes sense to me. And I get why they're very mad about Garland. That makes sense to me too. However, we've got one branch left that the American people still kind of like, and that's the judiciary. And in a time where we do have a lot of authoritarian threats coming from all over the place, having a branch that's designed to keep the system in place and enforce rule of law is very important. And so when you start undermining people that are qualified and good for that job, you're doing a disservice to the country. And I think that's happening here, where he probably wouldn't have been my top pick, Kavanaugh, but he's clearly a qualified candidate. I've seen no evidence that he's a vampire or whatever they're looking for. And it seems to me that in the process of trying to score all these political points and get donor emails, grants, and all this, they're also undermining the institution itself by doing that. And I think everybody should take a step back.
When you even have Ruth Bader Ginsburg agreeing.
I know, RBG.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of all people, agreeing that it's way too partisan now. You got to take a step back.
But in all honesty, if you had a 50-year-old Ruth Bader Ginsburg running now and it was nominated by Donald Trump, they would probably be turning her in as well. That's how bad the partisanship is now.
And it's also important to realize how relatively new this is. I mean, as she pointed out in the clip you're talking about, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was approved 96-3. Yeah. Breyer, I think, had 87 votes when he came in. Even Sotomayor and Kagan got 68 and 63. You go back and you find I think Alito got 58, Clarence Thomas got 52, even but they didn't filibuster right there. We've come to a point now where it's almost impossible to have these unanimous type rulings, and all these people are all qualified. I mean, maybe when Harriet Miers was nominated by Bush, that was the one where people were like, I don't think she's actually qualified, and actually Republicans were really the reason she didn't get through, and they came up with they had to go with somebody else. John Roberts got through, I think, with 78 votes. But now it's just, everyone is on those lines. And this has become as partisan and as, contentious as anything else that we have. And it's hard for me to blame any individual senator. I think if I were a senator, And I believe that, if Ruth Bader Ginsburg was up and I was voting on it, I would say, okay, and one part of me would say, yes, elections have consequences, but this is somebody who looks at the Constitution in a way that I think is completely wrong. And, someone who says that she thinks we should look to the South African Constitution for guidance. No, thank you. I like ours. I think it's a lot better. I don't think it's better than Canada. I think it's better than South Africa. I can't blame a liberal for saying no. I'm going to vote against. I'm going to go against Kavanaugh. I can't blame them for that. But the nonsense that they're doing with the procedural tricks and the lying about him and the hysterics.
And that's what I was going to say.
There's a letter. We can't tell you what's in it. We can't tell you who wrote it. We can't tell what it is. But it's out there. You should know that there's something there that could be bad. Picture the worst thing that you think it could be, and that's what it is. Yeah. That approach is just completely out of bounds.
Jason.
Yeah, her actual statement. I have to read this because this was insane. This was Feinstein's actual statement. I have received information from an individual concerning the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. That individual strongly requested confidentiality. So, we can't know who this individual is.
It was me. I'm sorry. I played softball with him one time and he cheated. I'm not letting it go.
So she goes on, declined to come forward or press the matter forward, and I have honored that decision. I have, however, referred the matter to the FBI. So this is insane. So was it right after that she said this, or was it right before? There was that article, I think it was in The Intercept, that came out that said that there was something having to do with him coming out. Yeah. And then the New York Times also said they had, unnamed sources, of course, that said it had to do with some preparatory school when he was in high school. And it might have had something to do with sexual misconduct. I think he even actually said that it might have had something. When he was in high school. Yeah. And it might have had something to do with sexual misconduct.
But maybe not.
Right. But maybe not. So, but the problem is, so if this really happened, I don't know. I'd be interested. I would be concerned about it, I guess. But
I would not.
Depending, yeah.
Well, I mean, if it was a crime,
like rape.
Right. If it was a crime, right, that would be a big deal.
Right. But no one knows, and she knows that no one is going to know.
And using the vague term misconduct to me suggests that it wasn't something that was rape or any kind of criminal allegations, any kind of assault. To me, they would use that opportunity to use that verbiage.
Right. You don't look at like a genocide in Rwanda and say there was misconduct.
Right. Exactly.
By the Hutus and the Tutsis.
So is this what actually delayed the vote until Thursday? Was this the linchpin for that?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But they did say, is it Thursday?
It's Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday now.
And by the way, the FBI said that they are not going to investigate it. So
look, this is the Hail Mary point is the best way to put this. I mean, they are all. It's like one of those things that sometimes you have a problem and it feels like your side is doing nothing to stop it, and so they are doing everything they can so they later can claim we did everything we tried every. They're not going to say trick. We tried every single thing that we could possibly do to stop this. But Donald Trump's just that evil, and at least they'll have that argument right to their voters and their voters.
They'll be martyrs.
Midterms are coming up, and we can say, look, there was this evil, shadowy figure that we tried to stop.
You need us.
And you need to come vote for us. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Good news. Back in a minute.
So pathetic. Hey.
Before we go to Glenn Jr. over here to give us the doom and gloom, I want to thank our TV and podcast sponsor, Nostalgia. We here at the office have been loving all of the products that they've been bringing. They came a while back and made their wild rice flour waffles. They have the pepper jellies.
I will say I heard a report from a source that Nostalgia sent some more stuff, and I have had none of it.
Really?
Came the other day. I don't know if somebody stole it. I don't know if somebody's hiding it. But I'm very
who would hoard all the healthy stuff here at the table? I wonder.
Don't know anything about what you're talking about. Would you like the healthy stuff? I'm sorry. I thought I was just taking it because you didn't want it.
Well, Nostalgia's different.
It is.
I'll make an exception for that.
It's healthy and it's delicious. So you can go to blazewildrice.com right now. They are donating 10% of the proceeds from what you buy to Mercury One and the Nazarene Fund. So it's a win-win. There's really no reason not to go. blazewildrice.com, and you can donate 10% by using the promo code HELP10. Glenn Jr., also known as Andrew.
Yeah.
Tell us about the federal deficit.
So it's gone up
No.
Shockingly. Are you sure? You want to recheck those numbers?
I called them.
Did you?
I went, guys, sometimes things look bad. It's gone up by 32% since last year, which is a lot. So to put this in perspective for folks at home, because there's a lot of numbers flying around, it was previously, and this is a technical term, at a mind-bogglingly crazy huge amount. And it's now increased to the point where if you try and write out the number on a napkin, it will actually create a wormhole because you'll rip apart the time-space continuum trying to get the numbers to work. So it's absolutely huge, and it's increasing. And I take away from this that there's not really a good party in terms of fiscal responsibility. They're both awful. It just depends on you pick the flavor of awful you want. Either entitlements are invisible or tanks are invisible. The only time it seems to actually work is when they're fighting each other. But when the Republicans are in power, and when the Democrats are in power, we get wormholes. All these wormholes.
Yeah. So true. I mean, that's all the Tea Party wanted to talk about, right? This is one we've hammered Trump on this many times, and the Congress, the GOP. They are doing a worse job with spending than Barack Obama did. It's higher, it's worse. I like the tax cuts. I'm a fan of the tax cuts, but with tax cuts should come spending cuts.
Yeah. You have to have both.
They're supposed to be both. They're supposed to go together. That is one of those things where there's been much more policy-wise with Trump that I've liked. I liked Gorsuch quite a bit, and we've talked about a lot of the things that I like about Trump. There's some policy-wise. This is one he has had almost no beating for at all when it comes to, especially from the right. I mean, I don't know how the left can argue they don't want more deficits. But the right has said basically nothing about this. This was a horrible spending plan. And remember, he's still promising an extra $1 trillion of stimulus spending and God knows what else. The spending has been disastrous in this administration. It's nothing short of it.
I recall Ben Sass, was it this week or last week, when he was like, I'm debating on going independent. There's a handful of us that are.
Oh, Ben Sass.
And he was like,
independent.
I know, he was like my spirit animal, when he was talking about this. And he's like, it doesn't seem like there's a game plan or anything for the future plan for any party. And like with GOP, it's supposed to be a party of conservative principles. But like you said, they have said nothing about this. There's not a single person that I can tell that's coming out, maybe besides like Rand Paul or somebody, but that's about it. I mean, now, if he's talking about fiscal responsibility and it seems like crazy, loony speak, what does that say for the future of Republicans? Like, is there anyone that's fiscally conservative there anymore?
I mean, it's largely embraced mercantilism. So there's a lot of economic pivots that can happen without hurting the party. But in terms of hurting the actual bottom line of the budget, that can absolutely go on for a really long time. There was some interesting work that Veronique Desrougy did over at Mercatus, and what she found was the only time we never actually cut spending. We did right after the Cold War because we shut down a bunch of bases. But other than that, we never cut spending. The only time we actually just slow the speed of growth down is where the president and one house of Congress, at least, are of different parties, because then they'll at least fight each other. Otherwise, it's just a sugar ruch of what can I? Oh, good, a flying tank, fantastic.
Yeah.
What about a flying tank that delivers Medicare? Great, better. And so it becomes problematic.
Yeah, they talked about the sequester like it was like the end of the world. Remember this? It was like what was it, a 1 or 2% cut across the board on certain non-discretionary spending. And they acted as if this was like it was like a catastrophe. I mean, I remember Nancy Pelosi saying like there are no crumbs left in the cabinets. It's like what? Again, the story came out today about Nikki Haley.
Yes.
And this is not Nikki Haley's fault. The New York Times, wrongly talked about this, but they accused her of having $57,000 curtains.
How many curtains are there?
Right, exactly.
If she has 57,000.
That's a good rate.
That's a good deal.
That is a good
rate. And long story short on that is it was something that was decided in the Obama administration. However, even the Obama administration ambassador shouldn't be blamed for it because it was controlled by an outside agency who makes these determinations that have nothing to do with the personal taste.
Is there a Department of Drapes? There's a federal Department of Drapes? Can we cut that?
Hey, don't say that out loud. It'll happen tomorrow, guaranteed.
But that's the point. It's like you can't tell me there's no crumbs left in the cabinets when you're putting $57,000 drapes into an office of an ambassador or home of an ambassador. That there's so much of that crap going on all the time that we all know that we could cut a couple of percent. I mean, many times people make the point of that. But we don't have to cut. Just hold spending where it is for 4 to 6 years, and we would balance the budget pretty easily. But we can't even do those things, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And I don't know how you turn it around because neither side wants to do anything about it.
All right, awesome. Thanks for the good news, gentlemen.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Flying tanks.
Civics knowledge.
We're not only spending a lot of money, but we're all really dumb too. It's great. It's wonderful.
Not the least shocking thing.
I mean, this poll comes out every year, and it is interesting to see just the general knowledge. I mean, I think we keep telling people to go out and vote, and I think we should maybe put a little addendum on that. You know, if you have any idea what you're talking about or have followed any of the issues involved in the campaign or civics in general. Here's this poll. It's from the Annenberg Constitution Center. This is a public policy center about Constitution Day. How many branches of government can you name them? Well, 33% can't name any. Another 21 can only name one branch. 2 branches is 13. And I'm actually impressed by 32% know all 3 branches. I like that it's actually higher than I thought. Again, how do you make these decisions on complicated topics when you don't know the very basics?
I didn't know there was a Department of Drapes until
with the program intro.
That poll's actually coming up. Hold on, you're on it. Thinking about the Supreme Court, do you agree or disagree that if the Supreme Court started making a lot of rulings that most Americans disagreed with, it might be better to do away with a court altogether? Half of people say, I can consider that one. 22% say they somewhat disagree only. Somewhat agree, 12%. 9% is strongly agree with getting rid of the Supreme Court because you don't agree with it. I mean, these are just, first of all, it's a very strange question, but a very odd answer. And I think we have one more. Is that right? Yes, here we go. Thinking about the Supreme Court, do you agree or disagree that when Congress disagrees with the Supreme Court's decisions, Congress should pass legislation saying the Supreme Court can no longer rule on that issue or topic? And only 43% strongly disagree with that. You're up to 65 when you get somewhat disagree in there. But then again, 28% of people agree with that statement, which is bonkers. I mean, it's like this is basic separation of power. And I think that's why I think this constant obsession with the president of the United States is actually long-term dangerous. Like right now, every single issue has to be viewed through the prism of Trump. And I think at some level that was true to a slightly lesser level, but it's increasing with every president, was with Bush and Obama as well. Instead of looking at these things, with a real process and answering these things with, constitutional viewpoint, it's just like, well, I don't like the president right now, therefore I'm going to disagree with everything he says and agree with the other side. This happens, when Barack Obama was president, there was a good chunk of Republicans who said he was not born in America with absolutely no evidence whatsoever. The same thing, about half of Democrats believed Bush was responsible for taking down the Twin Towers. Half of Democrats believe that. And we're told Alex Jones is some hardcore conservative. But it's like, you get to this point where you're just opposing this big figure. This person is just leading us all. He tells us what we have to care about every day. He tells us about what we're supposed to be passionate about every day, what we're supposed to defend, what we're supposed to oppose. It's just not healthy.
I think it's another big problem. I agree with you. I think another big problem is that I think that civics is not being taught in school anymore.
History's not being
taught in school anymore. But not only that, I mean, there is the people that are teaching. The professors that are teaching, like the teachers, even in their elementary schools or high schools and stuff, a lot of them are radicals. A lot of them were taught by people that learn their stuff from Frankfurt School, cultural Marxists. So a lot of them are teaching. They're not teaching. They're the one where they think that the Supreme Court should just be gone. Well, what's the one thing that stops you from just changing the Constitution and getting rid of it? Writing your own laws. Yeah. The Supreme Court. They're taught that's what you get rid of them. They're the bad guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, we got a break. Back in a minute.
It's on a roll there. I was just about to really drive it home.
I won't use this because we're off camera now, but there was a poll that came out 4 years ago.
If you are troubled by all of the outrage that we've been discussing with, the Supreme Court nominee and disagreeing with everything that Trump says ever, remember, you can pre-order Glenn's book, Addicted to Outrage. It comes out Tuesday, September 18th. That is this Tuesday, so make sure that you go pre-order it. Get it Tuesday. He's also got a tour that, Stu, I think you're going to be joining him for a couple days.
I think there's 12 cities we're in right now, so we might be a few more on the West Coast coming out soon. But awesome. Check that out, glennbeck.com/tour.
All right, and we will see you guys in overtime.